If you grew up poor or live anywhere outside the first world and are unfortunate enough to be a video game person, chances are you've come in contact with what they call the grey market, a chaotic parade of shifty swindlers and assorted alien fauna hawking their horrible products in an infernal sci-fi dystopian bazaar. The dim, unwashed masses wander this flesh maze in search of cheap entertainment to dull their agonies for a few hours. All kinds of contraband can be found here. Ice Age 2 cam rip in a sealed plastic bag. Absolutely, $10 please. You wanna play the Death Note opening on Guitar Hero? Of course you do. GTA Goku Spider-Man that crashes every 5 minutes? Go right ahead. No region locks, no quality control, no standards, no limits. Growing up in this environment means seeing what you were never meant to see. It means using up your neuroplasticity to navigate unreadable Japanese menus. It means being able to earnestly say you loved that Japan-only PS1 custom truck racing game with the fully original Enka soundtrack when you were a kid. And, more than anything, it means you get lied to. You cannot play GTA 4 on the PS2, but I hope to somehow make it so by purchasing modded San Andreas bootlegs that let me play as Homer Simpson or Donald Duck or whatever else Mexicans like. Perhaps I and the bootleg publishers could enter a feedback loop of mutual delusion that would bend reality and allow for the impossible. In my youth, I found myself desperately wanting to play Resident Evil 4 but lacking the game and the console for it. I could only see brief glimpses of it, played by other children in dark, loud gaming dens. One day, with my mother at a random second-hand store, I discovered their game collection. There was a PS1 game in a plastic bag labeled Resident Evil 4, featuring some illustration of Leon fighting zombies at night. I pointed this out to the middle-aged lady running the store, who obviously didn't know anything but wanted to sell it anyway. My mom chimed in, wondering if it could be some alternate version of the game made for older hardware. The lady agreed. We bought the game and took it home. I probably should have known better, but I can't fault my younger self for wanting nice things and being excited for them. I went back home, popped the disc in, turned the PlayStation on. And this is what I saw. Eagle-eyed viewers will notice this is not RE4, but instead Resident Evil Survivor, a light gun spin-off game and progenitor of the Gun Survivor series. Someone had played a rather cruel but excellent prank on me. I didn't even bother telling my mom the game was wrong. I think I just accepted my fate at that point. I do remember playing it all the way through, and had a surprisingly pleasant time replaying it for this video. So pleasant, I finished the game 7 or 8 times in a row. It's one of Capcom's many experiments infusing classic Biohazard gameplay with fast, replayable, arcadey action, trying to strike a balance between the usual key hunting and file reading with constant shootouts a la Time Crisis. Survivor has multiple branching points that encourage replays. Different runs can give you different antagonists, enemies, weapons, and levels. Mostly, I just enjoyed the way it looks and sounds. They can no longer rely on the carefully composed camera angles of past games, so the whole game takes place in these claustrophobic, barren rooms. Even when outside, there's a thick PS1 darkness devouring everything around you. From Software worked around this, by having most of their games from around this time take place almost entirely indoors or underground, which must have made things a lot easier for them. Meanwhile, Survivor tries its best to convey a chaotic zombie outbreak, despite the technical limitations, and the end result feels very uncanny in a way I greatly enjoy. In that way, it almost feels like a precursor to Dead Aim's weirdly amazing atmosphere. I feel no desire to act as though Survivor is the worst game ever, and nor do I feel like pretending it's a misunderstood Lynchian masterpiece, though I do feel this game is about 1,000 times more worthwhile and respectable than the RE4 remake. There's this game I played as a kid. I don't remember how I got it, just one of the many bootlegs I'd somehow get my hands on. It was a 3D beat-em-up and featured a white-haired character kicking people. His moveset was entirely kick-based because he always kept his hands in his pockets. This detail stayed with me for years, even after I'd forgotten everything else about it. In my mind, it came to be known as the Kicking Guy game, where it remained a very boring and consequential mystery for over a decade. Somewhere within the last 5 years, I would rediscover the Kicking Guy game, and unearth its true identity as Crisis Beat. Developed by Soft Machine and published by Bandai. Soft Machine has no logo and none of its staff have any pictures available online. Needless to say, they were one of those shadow ninja companies that mostly do grunt work for bigger studios. though they did release a handful of original titles, 3 of which we'll be appraising today. I believe they paint quite an interesting picture of Soft Machine. They occupy the same awkward spot between shovelware and art house as Cavia. Games that somehow feel inspired and tasteful while also just being obligatory entries into current market trends. Also, their name is probably a reference to the band, since old Japanese dudes love prog rock. And speaking of old Japanese dudes, one look at Soft Machine's catalog reveals a colorful collection of games, such as Patchy Slot Adventure 2, Nishijin Pachinko 2, and Nishijin Pachinko.
It's like the worst part of the internet.
Crisis Beat, not to be confused with Crisis City, City Crisis, Time Crisis, I'm not doing that again, is a rejected script for an early 90s OVA brought back from the dead and made into a game. I have no proof of any of this, but I dare you to look at this image and then tell me I'm wrong. I can't imagine it being anything else. The game takes place aboard a massive luxury cruise ship called the Princess of the Fearless, who is then seized and thrown into chaos by a terrorist group led by Slayer from Guilty Gear, who've stormed the ship to do some nebulous evil thing. I don't really know. They want to set off a virus bomb, kidnap a little girl who can somehow activate said bomb, and just exterminate humanity because we're malignantly useless or something. Am I just playing the same game on repeat forever? There's 4 playable characters in the select screen as you're going through their passports. That's a really fun detail and a good early sign of what Soft Machine excels at. Crisis Beat's ancient website proudly claims Makoto Koga worked on the game as a character designer, while listing his past work such as Macra 7 and Psycho Diver Soul Siren. I'm also delighted to see he worked on Dokuro-chan. I really like all his characters. They don't look physically similar, but you can tell they all came out of the same guy's head. I actually watched Psycho Diver out of curiosity. After watching, I learned it was based on a light novel series, which cleared some things up. It's about a hard-boiled brain detective being hired to dive into the mind of a famous pop singer with psychic powers, who's recently joined a mysterious cult. I imagine the novels have a similar premise. Koga's designs are noticeably toned down and more subdued here. This could be the source material's influence, or maybe since it's an OVA he just expected a more grown-up audience. Psycho Diver immediately endeared itself to me by opening with a 5-minute-long in-universe R&B music video by Yuki, the pop star. Everything after that is mostly an excuse to watch Koga's characters doing fun stuff. Fighting people, going on car chases, gloating about their evil plans. It's all fine with me. Koga was also the animation director for Psycho Diver, and he does a bang-up job there too. I love the colors here. That super sharp contrast between light and darkness. I think you could probably turn this OVA into a beat-em-up game with minimal tampering. So, what about the game he did work on?
なんだ? 新手のアトラクションにしちゃ違うテロか
Crisis Beat has 2 routes split between its 4 characters. Julia and Eiji start in the rear upper deck, while Kenneth and Yan start downstairs in the cabins. Each route changes up the game's earlier stages, placing them in a different order. The first thing you'll notice when playing Crisis Beat proper is, wow, this combat sure feels awkward. I'm too incompetent to describe this properly, but it feels very stiff and inconsistent, like there's no clear transition between attacks, no sense of motion. Well, whatever, it honestly doesn't matter. What does matter is the second thing you'll notice when playing Crisis Beat, which is, wow, this looks really cool. The focus here is on visual flair above everything else. Much like Psycho Diver, Crisis Beat is a barely justified excuse to watch Koga's character designs punching bad guys, and it very much succeeds at that. The core gameplay might be slightly unpleasant, but it also allows me to throw furniture at people and Zengi a Christmas tree. It lets me observe all the unique attacks every character has, like when the tomboy little girl does a cool golf swing, or stabs someone in the balls with a comedic sound effect. That's Yun, by the way. Her whole thing is using a broom as a martial arts staff. She's pretty good. Owns a blue cap with her surname on it. A.G. Garland is the standard protagonist man, and he looks and plays about how you'd expect. Fun in cutscenes though.
俺の名はエイジ刑事だ協力してくれ奴らをぶっ飛ばす
Julia Jefferson, also known as JJ, is a Belgian supermodel related to Millie, the girl who gets kidnapped by the terrorists to fulfill whatever their evil plan is. She's the blonde femme fatale of the group. Strangely, she's also a grappler who loves tackling people to the ground. Typically, this kind of character would be doing fancy flips and spin kicks, but guess who took on that role for this game? Yep, there he is, the kicking guy himself, also known as undercover Russian spy Kenneth Kirova. How long has it been? I could make a joke about how he's still kicking after all this time, but I don't want you to throw up. Best thing I can say about the fighting in Crisis Beat is that it isn't hard. There's no super annoying enemies or bosses getting in the way. There's infinite continues on every difficulty, so it's basically impossible to game over. You can just stroll around the ship unbothered and admire the game holistically. How this park area is completely silent, save for the sound of waves rolling by, as I hit these goons with my classic beat-em-up health-reducing super move. How the loading screen has you moving through the ship's schematics. This control room and its weird pixel GIF ring not quite matching with everything else. Lots of good cutscenes here, by the way. They're all voiced in Japanese and have those quality late 90s subtitles. Oh, what? What is happening?
Am I just playing the same game on repeat forever?
Obviously, Soft Machine's strong suit is their presentation, their ability to create memorable images. So memorable that I held onto the kicking guy for nearly 20 years, despite everything else being erased by Hikikomori time dilation. Now revisiting it as an alleged adult, I am quite pleased with it overall. There is something to Crisis Beat that makes it stand out from the rest. What is that something? Well, the game's director Hajime Nara later went on to work for Kaguya as a designer on Beat Down Fists of Vengeance. Does that help? Long ago, the demon king Lucifer burst forth from Hell's Gate, the portal between the human and demon realms. His arrival plunging our world into chaos and despair. To stop him, 4 powerful sorcerers forged a set of enchanted rings known as the Lucifer Rings, the only artifacts capable of sealing him away. Centuries later, the renegade sorcerer Baya seals all 4 rings and conducts a ritual to weaken Hell's Gate and resurrect Lucy himself. As the world becomes plagued by demons, the lone hero Nash sets out to save humanity, to retrieve the stolen rings, defeat Baya and his lackeys, and restore peace once again. This is mostly accomplished by holding R1 and pressing X a lot. Lucifer Ring is Crisis Beat's overly medicated sibling. They even share the exact same control scheme, and a lot of my criticism applies here as well. Makoto Koga did not come along for this one, and his absence is felt. This time, the visuals and art were handled by Sachito Okui and Naoki Murata, both of whom had credits in Crisis Beat and will also be present in the next game I talk about. Lucifer Ring was directed by Kojiro Endo, also featured in all of today's games, who amazingly would later go on to direct Way of the Samurai 3 of all things. When it comes to gameplay, Lucifer Ring is actually a noticeable improvement over Crisis Beat. The combat is maybe 20% smoother and hit feedback in general is greatly improved. Enemies are far more varied and expressive as well. Unfortunately, this is a monkey's paw situation where everything else in the game comes off as very rushed and strange as some kind of counterweight. The intro scroll from earlier is all you get, really. There's no cutscenes or voice acting aside from the loading screens, which have a narrator speaking as Nash travels the land like a JRPG world map. That's very cute at least. Lucifer Ring hits all the common anime fantasy beats, which is good if you're into that sort of stuff, but I'm not really. I feel like I just went from a cool and expensive bubble era OVA to some reheated shonen leftovers. It's not all bad though, the game still manages to leave an impression. For example, here's Bob. Bob is a muscled blue demon man wearing BDSM gear. He's the first enemy you see in the game, and his name is Bob. Stage 1 takes place in this demon-infested forest, made extra desolate by the low render distance black void that always surrounds you. Every outdoor area in this game feels precariously suspended above an infinite abyss that you could easily glitch through and fall into. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but these technical quirks do help the game feel distinct. This gothic graveyard stage looks awesome, and it's partly for those reasons. Though you spend so little time in it, it's kind of upsetting. I really wish this game leaned into its weirder side more. If everything in Lucifer Ring carried the same energy as this eye-nipple centaur boss, the game would have probably become a cult classic. Hell, just listen to that music. Yeah, I have no clue what's going on here. Most of the soundtrack is pleasantly generic, setting appropriate stuff, but the Stage 3 boss theme is horribly dissonant and contains some aggressive clipping, like the whole thing was made in half an hour. I think what keeps Lucifer Ring from diving headfirst into Kusoge territory is that much like Crisis Beat, it's very easy and generous. It's almost self-aware in how it lets you play around in its world without too much friction. Upon finishing the game, you are greeted with a very how-to-draw manga depiction of Nash, along with a gentle suggestion: just try one more time and something will happen. This is referring to a second playthrough alternate route that gives you slightly different levels and enemies, and leads to the true ending. I finished it before, but I completely forget what happens in it. Sorry. What's interesting about Lucifer Ring is that it's clearly a lower budget affair compared to the much fancier Crisis Beat, and yet some of those soft machine touches still remain. I like them both for the same reasons, though Lord Kenneth Kurova obviously wins out here. It's interesting to see them iterate on the type of game they have experience with, the things they changed or kept the same. I do recommend these games for those who are curious. You know right away what you're getting into with them, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Eye of the beholder and all that. For now, we'll behold this. We see into someone's dream. The dreamer is Tatsuya Inaba, a student of Kirigaoka High, a school located on a secluded island somewhere in Japan. In his dream, a girl is chased by an unknown assailant and runs into a chapel. After being murdered, she speaks directly to Inaba, warning him that something horrible will begin and a long-sealed evil will soon be unleashed on this island. He is then awoken from the ominous dream by Yuma, his classmate. They're staying late in school along with their friends to prepare for the next day's school festival. It turns out both Inaba and Yuma know the girl from the dream. She is Kaori Aikawa, a junior at Kirigaoka and the principal's granddaughter. One day she just up and vanished, with the teachers mentioning she transferred schools, though Inaba has some doubts about that. There's no time for this anyway. The pair are visited by Professor Hojo, who requires Yuma for something in the student council office. And thus we take control of Inaba. Our first objective is to find our classmate so we can finish this stupid takoyaki stand. Hey, wait a minute. I'm not punching any terrorists or goblins. What gives? Well, as it turns out, Iru has very little in the way of action. The game is mostly about talking to people, navigating dark-ass hallways with your claustrophobic first-person controls, collecting and using items from this wonderful old-school menu. You could call it a horror adventure game, though personally I like thinking of it as a glorified, edgy visual novel. It might even help to think of it as a low-budget horror movie, just realized in 3D because it's the 90s, and games don't take $5 billion and 8 years to make yet. This is soft machines shedding their baggage, so to speak. Their visual presentation was always their best quality, and in Iru it's the star of the show. The game's title is translated as "They're Here," but it's one of those things that never sound quite right in English. Like how the movie Kuru is translated as "It Comes." This is also your reminder to watch Tetsuya Nakashima's entire filmography. As for how Iru actually plays, well, the translator put up an official spoiler-free walkthrough of the game. That should tell you what's going on here. I highly recommend reading it unless you like the sound of spending hours going between 25 different rooms. There are 3 other students we have to wrangle for now. The first is Hirose, who says he'll head back to the classroom when he's done resting. The second is the resident dickhead Hikawa, who claims to be preparing for the festival by stacking desks to block this hallway. Why would that be a part of the festival? The third and last classmate is in the art club room, having a rather tense discussion with Miss Hojo. This is Mochizuki. For whatever reason, he's convinced Hojo knows the whereabouts of his missing brother Masayoshi. Following the teacher into the art club office, we learned that Masayoshi went missing about 3 years ago, and that he was also in love with Hojo. Mochizuki thinks she's full of shit and knows exactly where he is, his proof of this being that she's currently in possession of Masayoshi's copy of the Vermis Mysterious, the first of the game's many overt literary references. Aw man, all the shutters are down. That sure is weird. Back at the classroom, Hikawa is suspiciously angry at Mochizuki for digging into his brother's disappearance, and tells him there's no point in searching for a dead dude. He storms off, and Hirose still isn't here, so almost everything I've just done was for nothing. The authentic group project experience. There's a great sense of building tension in Iru's opening act. You can just feel things going to hell in the background while you're helpless to stop it. Even the few scenes that involve typical high school antics feel ominous, because of the scary music and the encroaching darkness both in and outside the school. Hikawa continues to be reliably dickish, seemingly trying to force Yuma and Hirose into some scheme of his. Back at the art office, Hojo is being menaced by another teacher named Mori, who seems to know of some horrible thing she's done and threatens to reveal this awful secret of hers. We don't have any voice acting this time around, but there's a surprising number of unique events and cutscenes. The central mystery is built up very well and very quickly, again like a movie or an anime. And then... it takes some time for our eyes to adjust. The PS1 darkness I mentioned earlier is now turbocharged. Pretty much everything I said about old first-person games fits like a glove here. The render distance is very low because it has to be, but the impression it leaves is fantastic. You have no way of knowing what's right in front of you. You look at the window and all you see is more darkness, more windows, and the one sad little tree sprite. Hell, even the ceiling is pitch black. The characters being these pale mannequin doll people is also used to great effect. Your surroundings slowly start to feel more like a classic SMT dungeon than an actual school. Just before the blackout happened, Mochizuki was complaining about a sudden splitting headache. Now, some girl from the art club is banging on the door to the ladies' bathroom. Her friend is inside, whom she's quite worried for. We inform Miss Hojo about it, and she says not to worry as everything is under control. I believe her. Okay, never mind. Running away from the girl, we discover the game's only standout mechanic, only used about 3 or 4 times. Hiding. You have a few seconds to find a good hiding spot until the enemy icon enters the door. Of course you'll find all the hiding spots almost instantly every time, but it's a fun enough addition, especially given the game's perspective. This is the point where Iru reveals itself as a work of Lovecraftian horror, and if your eyes instinctively rolled upon hearing that, I don't blame you. However, please remember this game was made at a time where these topics were portrayed by people who had genuine interest in them. You don't make a game like this without investing hundreds of hours into tabletop Call of Cthulhu. Iru has an adorable devotion to the Lovecraft mythos, and stuffs as much of it as possible into its story. Shoggoths, Innsmouth, the Necronomicon, Hounds of Tindalos, Cthulhu, who as far as I can tell is just evil space fire, Abaruth, who isn't a real thing and is possibly a Japanese mistranslation of Abath. We've got Elder Signs, just like Laplace's Demon.
Am I just playing the same game on repeat forever?
We've got the Gem of Riley and the Powder of Benghazi. Even old Squidface himself makes an appearance in the game's bad ending. We go even beyond Lovecraft. We're name-dropping 16th century historical texts on witchcraft and demonology. We're learning forbidden spells to kill cosmic flesh creatures. The school is now littered with dead students and teachers. Any survivors are on the edge of insanity. At first, if you enter a bathroom and examine the mirror, Inaba will just make some generic comment about needing a haircut. If you do it after this point in the game, he is full-on paranoid and terrified of something appearing behind him. Mochizuki is in even worse shape, with his headaches being the result of some entity taking over his body. It does not appear to be entirely malicious though, and even claims to know what happened to Masayoshi. If you search the school thoroughly, you can find scraps of paper that reveal a whole conversation between Mochizuki and the entity. The game can split into 2 routes here depending on where you go next. They focus on different characters and even alter the game's final antagonist. This is another example of an idea Soft Machine previously toyed with being taken to its full potential with Iru. People do have their problems with this game, and I sympathize, but I still can't help but see it as an extremely impressive refinement of what used to be vestigial elements in their earlier work. Trust me, you could do a whole lot worse. I just played through all of Clock Tower Ghost Head and that was easily one of the most frustrating games I've ever played in my life. It's right up there with the Vampire Hunter D game for being conceptually and visually amazing, but also unintuitive and cumbersome to a psychotic degree. Afterwards, I completed Galarians, which by comparison felt so reasonably designed that I didn't even mind when I had to restart my playthrough, after soft-locking myself because I ran out of meds and Rion's head kept exploding. And then, after all that, I played DMC2 for the first time. Here's how that went. I've tried to keep most story details in the wraps here, but I would like to talk about these two side characters and vaguely touch upon the ending a little. These are Kyoko and Rie, the art club girls. Their introduction makes it clear Rie has feelings for Inaba, the protagonist. Kyoko urges her to confess before he graduates. We get some anime rom-com scenes where Rie continues to be horribly shy and Kyoko fails at being a wingman. Eventually, Rie will begin acting strangely. All she does is stare at the incoming lunar eclipse and mumble incoherently, as though she's completely forgotten about Kyoko and Inaba. Miss Hojo has nothing of value to say about this, of course, though she does mention something starting earlier than she expected. After the blackout, we find Kyoko pounding on the bathroom door. It seems Rie's locked herself inside and she's worried sick about her. Another pointless visit to Miss Hojo later and we hear yelling from inside the bathroom. As soon as we enter to see what's going on, Rie breaks the stall door open, drags Kyoko inside and mauls her like a wild animal, before grabbing her off the floor with inhuman strength and snapping her neck. The last thing she did was ask us where the teacher was in a panic, and we said she'd be here soon, but she never came. Rie shambles towards us like a marionette, and so the hiding scenario from earlier plays out. We never see Rie again after this event. So no, they weren't just two nameless NPCs, but two very likable, fleshed-out characters who are suddenly, cruelly disposed of in roughly 2 minutes. In most other stories, these two would be main characters. Rie could easily have been a kind of love interest final girl, but not here. Instead, she kills who I presume to be her only friend and nearly kills the boy she liked. They don't come together as a team to pull through and defeat the evil presence. They don't come up with some clever plan to bring Rie back. The characters are truly helpless. The adults around them are either useless or actively preying on them. I tried to think of other Japanese media with similar themes and eventually landed on The Drifting Classroom by Kazuo Umezu. It's superficially similar, but more striking in all the ways that it's unlike Iru. Both stories concern students being trapped in school as unknown horrors attack and order breaks down. It has the gruesome deaths, the evil adults and all that, but the tone is fundamentally different. Something I've noticed a lot of Showa-era artists do, be they mangaka or filmmakers or game devs, is portraying youth revolt in a very positive light. No matter how bleak the circumstances surrounding them, there's something inherently noble in doing the right thing, in holding on to youthful dreams and ideals, in not becoming craven and cynical like your abusers in the sick world they live in. Probably has a lot to do with growing up in the aftermath of World War II. And Iru, as I've just demonstrated, is absolutely not like that at all. There are no dreams, no ideals. You don't get any points for being a good boy. When the entire pantheon of early 20th century American horror descends upon you and your friends, you don't survive together and learn to put aside your differences and grow as people. You just fucking die. The adult characters in Iru are among the least respectable I've ever seen. They're not even outwardly villainous for the most part. They're just incredibly inept, self-centered pig people who do awful things for pathetic, stupid reasons. The horrific consequences of which are entirely shouldered by the innocent students, who must now suffer, go insane, and die for absolutely nothing. You don't get more realistic than that. It's like the difference between Twilight Syndrome and Moonlight Syndrome. Very Heisei. All I'll say about the ending is that it involves Yuma being used in a ritual as a sacrifice. Your final objective is to stop said ritual. 3 different endings can be achieved depending on what you do, what you did before, what items you have, etc. The best ending has you stop the ritual and snap Yuma out of the trance she's in. It's over. The eclipse is gone, the evil is vanquished, and at least they have each other. Oh nice, there's the ending scroll. Some nice calming music too. Let's see. Inaba and Yuma suffered from terrible PTSD as survivors of the surreal incident and were admitted to a hospital to recover. Oh. In an attempt to break away from those horrible memories, the two cut off contact and transferred to different schools. Right. But Inaba still sees that day in his dreams. Okay, forget I said anything. Here's your good ending, bro. It's so funny to have this happy-coded ending where you save the girl and everything works out, except of course it doesn't. The two of you still had to go through all that. Sure, maybe you saved the world, but your world is gone forever. You've seen things no one should see. You know things you were never meant to. The only person who understands you can't stand to be with you. It'll never go away for either of you. There's another ending, one where you don't manage to break Yuma's trance, and it might be even more miserable than the last. It's kind of astonishing how hopeless this game is. It's another case of the Japanese doing Lovecraft earlier and better than anyone else. And again, these are somehow the same people who made this. The Patchy Slot Adventure people. That's Soft Machine, baby. Something I noticed was that the credits music also plays during the game's very first scene, right after Inaba wakes up from his nightmare. It plays over all this footage of different characters dying in a very mournful fashion. If only we could have made it to the Star Exhibit Festival. Oh, I get it. That reminds me. This is the December video, so I guess I have to talk about the holidays. Well, I'm not going to because I don't care. All that means for me is there's more noise pollution and I feel even worse than usual for a few weeks. I'm going to watch torrented anime, play more old games, and not talk to any of my family members. Soft Machine was not an important or even noteworthy studio. They did their work and eventually disappeared into the mists of history. Still, you can find gold anywhere if you dig for long enough. They made the Kicking Guy game, they made Bob's game, and they made a game I find genuinely amazing with Iru. It was not the product of some rockstar auteur, but rather a team of people working efficiently towards a clearly defined goal. As far as I'm concerned, they've spun gold out of straw. All of this from a studio so underground they don't even have a logo. It's a nothing tuber talking about a nothing developer. Match made in heaven. Well, they're sure as hell not nothing to me. I liked them as a dumb child and will like them forevermore. Thank you for your service.